Like and follow if you love horror. Ronnie turned to Joe Jack. You want to explain that? No, I do not. Joe Jack stroked his chin. He was trying to grow a beard, but his face wasn't cooperating. The hair coming in was scraggly and patchy. But if you're asking, I still think this could be a normal case, he shrugged. You ever see Silence of the Lambs? Seriously, Agent Coolidge. Diana Saperstein stepped in past the retching rookie and looked around the room, then stepped back out. Despite what you might have gleaned from Hollywood movies, displays like this aren't actually the norm in serial killer cases. The presence of an attractive woman seemed to cue the rookie's nausea, or at least spur him into pretending he wasn't sick. Now look, ma'am, I don't know what your division does, but this is obviously a killer who enjoys playing with his food, so to speak. He slowly regained color as he spoke, bravado and self-importance trumping his need to vomit. With mass killers like this, it's about power. The victims are probably chosen at random. And you don't need to mansplain forensic psychology to me, Agent, Diana interrupted. She was taller than average and carried herself like a woman who would methodically take notes while kicking your ass. She wore a dark blue suit that complemented her black skin. She gave the impression of a prowling leopard when she moved. Giuliani. Agent Joseph Giuliani, I mean. Giuliani had ignored Ronnie's groan and eye roll. Joe Jack pushed past Diana and grabbed Giuliani's hand, pumping it enthusiastically. Great! I'm also Joe. Not Joseph, mind you. I'm Joe Jack. He saw Diana's exasperated look. Agent Coolidge. I mean, and there's Agent Amwanka? I know, right? And Agent Saperstein. Now you know who to tell your CO is taking over. He hadn't let go of Joseph's hand, hoping the prolonged contact would make him uncomfortable enough to leave. It worked. I'm going to agree with Ronnie on this one, Joe Jack. It's our case. Call it in. It watched with a sad longing in its being. Its very core ached while it viewed the magnificent creatures from a distance. They moved so gracefully, with such fluidity. Each had desirable properties, from the tone of their skin to the color and length of their hair. It especially loved to watch the musculature, sinuous and tender, flexing and unflexing as they leapt about. It could feel the sensation in the air, a vibration of a sorts. It could not interpret it, but it knew the vibration guided their movements. They followed its rhythm, turning and bending as they went. It could not understand why they were compelled to move in such intricate patterns, but it knew they did so that others might watch. In the darkness, there were literally thousands of them watching. They were all so grand, adorned in silks and satins. Many had applied color to their face. It could tell most ached as it ached, which it thought selfish. They, too, could prance if they wanted, but chose not to. Many of them had abandoned the grace of their bodies. If only it was so lucky, it would learn to move to the vibrations. To understand the vibrations, to be a part of that movement, would require close examination. However, it knew it was not invulnerable, and with so many so close, it would have to wait and experiment when it had isolated its subjects. These creatures were creatures of consistent pattern, and while it had taken some observation to select an isolated location to study its subjects, it did find such a place. These magnificent creatures would gather together on the 22nd and final ritual. They would adorn themselves with lavish cloth and spectacular mineral collections set into soft metal. They would then intoxicate themselves at their place of learning, an isolated domicile. There were 12 to experiment with, 9 of almost identical build, 3 of what were called male, and 6 of what were called female. The other 3 were older and less interesting. Their manes had grayed to silver. One, it was certain, wasn't even real. Their skin was splotched and sagging. Even the darkest of the 3 had paled with age. But the 9, they were perfect specimens, varying colors of flesh and hair, all roughly the same size and shape. How the 3 older specimens were able to select such perfection was beyond its grasp. There was an experiment for another time. Isolating the subjects was just the first difficulty. Keeping them from avoiding the experiment was the next. Thankfully, almost all the windows and door frames of the domicile were metal. An electric current of approximately 750,000 volts less 4 milliamps would render them immobile if they attempted to exit. Electricity was such a marvelous invention. It wished it was awake when the light bulb was invented. It would have much liked to experiment with Edison and Tesla. Maybe they would have appreciated it. That notion was frustrating. Most of these creatures ran from it when they saw it. They also were quite adversarial to the experiments. Many would thrash while others would attempt to dismantle it. That didn't seem an appropriate response. It was as if they experienced great displeasure from having their skeletal systems removed. There would be no less mess and certainly cleaner work if they would just allow it to do its work in peace. The agitation they exhibited was unbecoming of science. Miranda stood in the corner of the crime scene. The regular unis had all gone, shooed away by the growing FBI presence. 12 bodies meant it would be literally impossible to keep this under wraps. One of the cops was certainly already talking to the press. Miranda lifted her head, eyes closed, and inhaled deeply, the stench of blood and viscera filling her nostrils. Spot on, Ronnie. This is definitely one of ours. She lowered her head and stalked around the room while Ronnie shot Joe Jack a smug look. Can one of you tell me what that slick greenhorn following Saperstein around like a puppy is? Ronnie made a face, revealing his own frustration. That's Agent Joseph Giuliani. He was the responding agent, fresh from Quantico. Ronnie sighed. Apparently they don't teach you not to think with your junk in Quantico these days. I seem to remember they didn't teach you that either, Agent. Miranda shot him a look. Ronnie had the good graces to blush at the not-so-subtle reminder of something from his past. Miranda moved across the academy's pristine hardwood floors, carefully avoiding the blood streaks that she checked each room and victim. Joe Jack, why don't you go take Giuliani to grab some coffee? I would like to get Jira in here with Inquisitor. Yes, sir? Ma'am? Joe Jack exited, just as much to relieve poor Diana of her shadow as to try and make himself a new friend. There was an awkward moment of silence between Ronnie and Miranda. Ronnie wanted to say something but knew better. As he saw it, the past was the past, and that's where it belonged. The uncomfortable silence and Miranda's steely glare were momentarily broken by Joe Jack's boisterously making friends with Agent Giuliani. Then finally, the silence was broken permanently by Agent Saperstein. I thought I'd never get rid of him, she sighed, relieved. I can't create a profile if I have to constantly babysit that sophomoric buffoon. Joe Jack will keep him busy, Miranda explained with a slight smirk. He can make a 5-minute coffee run take 3 hours. No doubt he's already trying to encourage a sing-along to Iron Maiden. Miranda touched her earpiece and gave Diana a moment to inspect the scene individually. Jira, the coast is clear. Come on in. Stay hooded, though. I know we have lurkers. No, I mean paparazzi. Unis have been talking to the press. The killer removed the bones in the last scene as well. Diana examined the human epidermis, masterfully intact and hung up on a cord with hanger clips as though it was a sheet of linen. Yeah, just like the last time. Every victim except one who locked herself in the walk-in freezer, Ronnie said. He followed a trail of blood from where the victims was struck down and dragged to where it was deboned. But that wasn't all. Without another word, Ronnie headed for the grand staircase of the academy and hurriedly began climbing. Agent Saperstein, stay on him, Miranda ordered. Diana left with a simple nod. As the two departed, a slight figure in a gray hoodie and thick blackout sunglasses entered the room and looked around. After a moment, Jira pulled off his hoodie and stretched out his metallic wings, though his red eyes stayed behind his shades. Thank the grace. I thought I'd never stretch these out. He pulled out his cell phone and turned on Inquisitor. What a mess. Within moments, green runes fell about the trails of blood and filled them with complex theorem. A seal filled the room suspended in light just off the floor. Inquisitor was a special application that made many forms of magic possible.